At this point, it's been around 14 months since I made my first video on Ashes of Creation, which is a very ambitious MMORPG that's currently in development that I personally believe to have the biggest chance of being the next big modern MMO. Today I'm going to be talking about the progress that's been made with the game, the studio behind it, common concerns that people have with it, and ultimately explain why this is a game that I'm still very excited for and believe will be a big success when it's eventually released. First off, let's discuss the progress that's been made so far. Currently, as of making this video, it's July 2018. Pre-production work first began on Ashes of Creation in February 2016, and actual full production began in June 2017, meaning so far the project has been in the works to some degree for a total of 2 years and 5 months. Let's put that into perspective relative to how long other MMOs take to develop from pre-production to release. Star Wars: The Old Republic took 5 years to make, World of Warcraft took 4.5 to 5 years to make, Guild Wars 2 also took 5 years to make, Final Fantasy XIV took 8 years to release A Realm Reborn due to the game needing to be completely reworked, Elder Scrolls Online took 7 years to make, Terra took 4 years, and Black Desert Online took 4.5 years to make. So on average, a big AAA MMORPG takes about 5 years and 4 months to make, and most of them don't show any footage or gameplay until about a year prior to the release when they start to move into the testing phase. I think something that not a lot of people realise when it comes to the gameplay footage that's been shown of AOC so far is that most of what they're seeing is placeholders such as the combat, the animations, and the entire user interface. The purpose of showing things like dungeon runs and PvP so far is to test that the basic systems are working, such as, does pressing X ability deal damage to the monster at its intended range? If I stand within X distance of this mob, will it aggro a character? Can the game handle X amount of player-controlled characters in an area without crashing? And can a group of people move through this cave without having their camera clip through the wall? These are very fundamental things that an MMORPG needs to get working before going deeper into the more superficial stuff that we as players can better relate to. This explains why we see so many videos showcasing the world and environment on the Ashes YouTube channel, as for the most part this is something that can be worked on by a few people without them being tied to too many other systems, and very little testing and iteration being needed when compared to other areas of game development. When making an MMO, the first tangible thing a studio will have to show off to its players is the world and environment, so it only makes sense that at this stage this is what we're seeing most of. Although saying that, if you do want to see more actual gameplay, they always seem to show stuff like dungeons and PvP on their recent live streams, even though this stuff is still in early stages. When I made my first AOC video 14 months ago, I think I remember being told that they only had 8 employees at that point, which understandably made a lot of people, including myself, skeptical considering the scope of the project. Now, however, they've expanded and have a team of around 84 people, which is an insane rate of growth, making Ashes the largest fantasy MMO in development that we're currently aware of. I recently got flown out to California by Amazon to test a new MMO that they're working on, and found myself with a free day during the trip, so I ended up going to San Diego to visit Intrepid studio in person and get a look at what's going on behind the scenes at Ashes of Creation. The general feeling I got was that the studio had a clear sense of direction and leadership, which isn't a feeling that's always present from my experience in interacting with and meeting other development teams. It seems like everyone at Intrepid knows what they're doing and are full throttle into implementing features, and they're now just starting the process of designing the action side to their combat system. Something that impressed the hell out of me was being shown the artists working on some of the armor, weapons, and cosmetics. To do this, they actually made their own custom module in Unreal Engine 4 that allows them to customize pretty much everything you can imagine on the smallest level, as well as avoid one of the most annoying aspects of MMO fashion, the armor, hair, and weapon clipping, which I find really exciting. Based on everything I got to see and my conversation collaboration with the artists, I think the fashion aspect of Ashes is very much in safe hands. Aside from the armor and weapon design, another thing I got to see was the way custom assets such as buildings are being designed. I was told that most of the buildings in this game will be designed so players can go inside of them. Another observation I made was the verticality of the buildings being made, especially at the Metropolis node stage. This is something you rarely see in MMOs, huge tall buildings that give you that sense of scale that players can actually go inside of. Very cool to see indeed. I think the biggest thing that's impressing me with Ashes so far is the speed in which they're developing the game in comparison to other MMOs in development. It's kinda crazy that they've recently got their node system working, they've already showed a somewhat working dungeon, questing, and even a 40-player PvP encounter near a castle. For an MMO that's only been in active development for such a short time, that's an unprecedented level of progress, and according to Steven Sharif, they've been working ahead of schedule at every benchmark so far, and will hit their Alpha 1 date for Q4 2018. Currently, as of making this video, Ashes is playable in an Alpha 0 state, which is designed to test tech supports, and systems. The world is limited in size, there's only 3 nodes with only one being able to reach the village stage, and the people involved have to sign an NDA to participate in it, hence why you don't see any independent YouTube content about it. Alpha 1 is when you're going to start to see a lot more Ashes related content on YouTube, as there'll be no NDA, so people like me can show footage and give opinions on the game so far. The first part of Alpha 1 will be testing a lot of the PvP and action combat related stuff, such as arena mode, castle siege, city siege, raid vs raid, and guild vs guild battles. Part 2 of Alpha 1 will then be more about testing the crafting and gathering. Alpha 2 is planned for late 2018 or early 2019, and is probably the most exciting time for me as a content creator, as the servers will be kept online day and night for test purposes, and will probably have a lot of the game's core features implemented with some kind of progression system. At this point, I also expect we'll see a much more finished combat system that looks way different to what we've seen currently. When I made my first video on Ashes, a lot of you guys were very skeptical about it, and rightly so. There's been so many MMOs that have promised so much and failed horribly. Whilst I think it's smart to be cautiously optimistic, I also think it's important to not paint Ashes or any MMO currently in development with the same brush as other MMOs that have failed, especially Eastern ones. In this final part of the video, I want to talk about why I'm not personally too skeptical about the game's future. The difference between Western and Eastern MMOs is that pretty much every Eastern developed one ends up paid to win, because most games out there are free to play, and developers see the free to play model as their only way of being competitive in that market. As a result, these games design their progression systems around this free to play model and don't put in the effort to change it for their Western releases, most likely due to the additional effort it would take to run 2 separate versions of the same game. This is a big reason why all Eastern MMOs that come to the West are so frustrating. They have some cool features, nice combat, but are ruined at a fundamental level by their business model. Most of the MMOs that have came to the West in recent years are Eastern localizations, and most of them have failed, which further adds to the general feeling within the community that the MMORPG genre is dying and there's no hope. In reality, however, I think that's only true for Eastern MMOs coming to the West. The last big Western MMO we had released was The Elder Scrolls Online, which is still going fairly strong today. If Ashes of Creation was a Korean MMO, I would most likely have no expectations or hype, as we've seen time and time again that the developers simply don't listen to their player base. But since this is not the case, and progression will not be tied to the cash shop, I don't think Ashes of Creation will have any of the issues such as the ones we all hate about Eastern MMOs. One of the biggest reasons I actually have faith in Ashes is because of Steven Sharif, the CEO. This is a guy that's played pretty much every MMO out there. He's led what was at one point the largest guild in Arcade, he's commanded groups in Guild Wars 2 World vs World, and he also watches a lot of MMO related content on YouTube. Talking to this guy is like talking to a normal MMO fan that's just sick of the disappointment. The difference with Steven is that he actually has the money to do something about it. He told me last year that he's put over $30 million of his own money into the game, and after a recent conversation he understands that the best way to make a success successful and profitable MMO for the Western market is to just make something that's better than everything else with no pay to win. Honestly, if I had the same amount of money and resources, I'd probably do the exact same thing and make my own MMO with full transparency like Ashes. It seems to me like the guy leading the company isn't just doing so to make as much money as possible, but to make a game which he'll actually be playing himself, which I think is a really good sign. For me and the majority of people, it seems like the biggest concern we've had about Ashes of Creation is the combat system. Everything else about the game seems pretty cool, from the raiding, the node system, the castle sieges, the questing, and the huge open world, but none of that really matters if the combat system is boring and tedious. At this point, I think it's safe to say that Intrepid Studio are more than aware that combat is the most important thing they need to get right. The majority of their YouTube comments for every Ashes related video is people mentioning that the combat so far looks pretty bad. It's just tab targeting where some attacks need to be timed and you hit Q to auto attack. I can confidently say that this is not the combat system the game will have upon release. It's only very recently that the devs have actually started working on the action part of the combat, and I've been told that this is the system that they'll be spending the most time and effort on, as combat takes the most time to get right. So at this point, try not to get too upset about the combat, give the devs a bit of time to develop the full thing, and if it's still looking bad, then by all means give that feedback. Until then, we'll just have to wait and see, but personally for me, I do think they will eventually make something awesome, even if that means they basically scrap the current combat system and start again. They seem like the type of studio who would rather do that than release a bad combat system. Overall, for such a huge game, I think Ashes of Creation's making some really impressive progress considering how long it's been in development for. Usually, I'm the first person to express concerns with an MMO's development, the team behind it, or its features. If I thought this game was going to be garbage, or could turn out to be a scam of some kind, I'd be warning you guys right now. But honestly, after meeting the developers, seeing the rate of growth from 1 year ago, knowing the game's already fully funded, and the fact that they haven't gone back on anything they've said would be in the game, for once, I don't have anything to complain about yet, which is a really refreshing feeling for me. It's nice for there to be a game that's being developed by someone that actually wants to play that game, and also have a lead designer like Jeffrey Bard, who's probably the most passionate and enthusiastic developer you'll ever meet. I think a lot of the negativity surrounding Ashes mostly has to do with them showing development at a much earlier stage than what people are used to, which is a good thing in the sense that they can get feedback early on, and a bad thing in that people take what they're showing as a finished product. For me though, as someone who backed this game on Kickstarter, so far so good. I still can't wait to play the game, and it's nice to see these ideas becoming more of a reality. If you have any questions about specific features and information related to Ashes, I highly suggest you join the game's official Discord, which should be linked in the description below. There you can find a Q&A section that will most likely have the answer you're looking for. Alternatively, post your question in community help desk or discussion, and someone will have an answer for you. I think at this point, basically everything that's been asked about this game has been answered, so the information is most likely out there. Before we end this video, I want to make you aware of my referral link for this game in the description below. If you sign up to this game through that link, it helps support my channel without costing you anything. This video isn't sponsored in any way, this link is just something that everybody who makes an account has access to, so why not make use of it? But thanks for watching guys, it's nice for me to be able to make some positive stuff from time to time instead of just ranting about all of the bad stuff associated with this genre. If Ashes of Creation turns out to be the next big MMO, I will definitely be making a lot of content for it, from guides to montages, meme stuff, as well as discussion videos, so consider subscribing if that's something you'd be interested in. Thanks for watching, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you again really soon.